What's up, guys? It's Alex here, and welcome to the first Bracketology of the new year for 2021. This one is for January 5th of 2021. These Bracketology updates are going to be coming out every Tuesday and Friday now, so you can expect 2 Bracketology videos a week instead of just the one that I have been doing on Tuesdays, and then probably once like late February comes around, it'll become like maybe 3 times a week, and then once the real meat of the tournament stuff gets to happen in early March and then mid-March, you can expect this to be basically every single day, whether it be Joe Lunardi or Jerry Palm or whatever. But after another crazy weekend of college basketball, man, it was just filled with tons of upsets. It wasn't really an upset here, but you had Texas just go on the road and absolutely destroy Kansas. It was like 84-59 at Kansas, which was just absolutely crazy. You also had, I think, West Virginia lost to Oklahoma, which was pretty crazy. Then I think, there was something else Alabama handing Tennessee their first their first loss of the season in general. I think that was at home for Tennessee too, which was pretty crazy to see. And then we just had a couple other ones that were pretty crazy. I mean, Kentucky ended up getting their the second win of the season, first win since the first game of the season, which as a Kentucky fan, that was just nice to see. I mean, we're nowhere close to the tournament. But Florida State is continuing their dive down the bracket. As you can see, they're now down to an 8 seed. Then you got other teams like Michigan now up to a 2 seed, and even Clemson now up to a 4 seed, which is just absolutely crazy. Tons of teams moving up the bracket, tons of teams moving down the bracket. And you know what we got to do? We got to go ahead and take a look here at the different movements within the different regions. And it was announced this week that, it was expected just from November on to this point, but the entire NCAA tournament will be taking place in the state of Indiana. The regional sites, and then kind of like the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, those are going to be held throughout the state of Indiana, like at Assembly Hall for Indiana. I think they're having some at Purdue Summer Arena too. Then you got some at like the Bankers Life Fieldhouse, and then the it used to be Hinkle Fieldhouse. Don't know if it's still named that over at Butler. Then like IUPUI and something like that. And then I think the Final Four and the championship game itself will be taking place at Lucas Oil Stadium, which I would have loved to go to if fans were allowed, because I'm from Louisville, as you guys know. And freaking Lucas Oil Stadium is only 2 hours away. I go there all the time for Colts games. So it was it's just so frustrating. I could have gone to the Final Four and the national championship this year, but oh well. That's just life in general. It's the world we live in. It wasn't even supposed to be in Indianapolis this year, I don't think. But either way, we're going to go ahead and take a look here at Region 1. We got Duke now down to an 8 seed. They haven't played since, I think, December 16th, but they should be getting ready to start things back up. I think Mike Krzyzewski is missing their first game against Boston College. I think it's tomorrow. Maybe wrong on that, but I don't know. Then you got Seton Hall, who is new to the field as a 9 seed, going all the way from being not even in the tournament bracket to being a 9 seed. They picked up a couple big wins this past week. I can think of Butler off the top of my head. I think they beat Providence too. I may be wrong on that one though. And we got Furman up to a 12. West Virginia down to a 4 after losing to Oklahoma, but then they had that huge come-from-behind win against Oklahoma State last night. I think they were down by like 19 or something like that, and somehow were able to come back. And we got USC and Northwestern there as the play-in game as the 11 seeds. Tennessee, as I mentioned, lost to Alabama. They are now down to a 3 seed, as you can see. Then we have UC Irvine up to a 14. San Diego State down to a 7. North Carolina is one of those teams that is just falling down the bracket. They somehow were able to get a victory over Notre Dame this weekend. North Carolina is just not looking good right now. If they had lost to Notre Dame, they may be even on like the last 4 in, or maybe even first 4 out, something like that. They didn't even turn their season around there. Then we got Michigan still remaining undefeated. They are looking fantastic right now, up to the number 2 seed right there. And then you got Southern Utah up to a 15. Then if we go over there to Region 2, we got Baylor remaining the 1 seed. Florida State, as I mentioned earlier, down to an 8. Minnesota up to a 5. They're continuing their strong run throughout the course of the season. Wichita State new to the field as the American representative there as a 12 seed. Belmont up to a 13. Florida up to a 6. Good to see Keontae Johnson back on the sideline coaching for them. Then we got Navy new to the field as the 14. Virginia Tech up to a 7. Xavier down to a 10. Illinois up to a 2. And then Oral Roberts new to the field as a 15. Then in Region 3, we got Villanova remaining the 1 seed there. LSU up to a 9. Texas Tech down to a 5 after losing to... they lost this past weekend too. I think it was to Oklahoma State. They lost at home. That was one of the upsets that I couldn't remember earlier. Then we had Clemson up to a 4. Abilene Christian up to a 13 seed. That's pretty impressive for them. Usually they're like a 15 or 16 if they make it in, but now up to a 13. Then we got Ohio State down to a 6. They fell out of the top 25 in the polls this week. Drake, new to the field as an 11. I think they're the MVC representative. Then we got Kansas down to a 3, playing the 14 seed Little Rock, who is now new to the field. UCLA up to a 7, and then New Mexico State down to a 15. Then if we go over there to Region 4, we have Texas up to the 1 line. Congratulations to them. They are looking really good this season. Then we got Rice new to the field as a 16. NC State up to a 9. Louisville up to a 5. VCU new to the field as a 12 as the A10 representative. They'll probably fall back out here after a couple conference games they've been playing. But as of right now, they're leading the American. Then we got Hofstra up to a 13, St. Louis up to a 6, and then we got the playing game of Oklahoma State and Alabama. Houston down to a 3, Siena new to the field as a 14, UConn up to a 10, Iowa up to a 2, and then Cleveland State new to the field as a 15. So if we scroll down here to the bubble, last 4 byes, as I mentioned, North Carolina, they're playing their way onto the bubble right now, and not in a good way. We got Syracuse, Xavier, and UConn. Last 4 in are USC, Northwestern, Alabama, and Oklahoma State. First 4 out are Purdue, Oklahoma, BYU, and SMU. And then the next 4 out are Stanford, Richmond, Maryland, and Chicago. So as you guys know, every time I do this bracketology, I give my own bracket predictions for, the bracketology there to kind of get myself in the mood for March Madness, get you guys in the mood for March Madness. The NFL season is they're already in the playoffs right now. And then the college football season, I think they have the championship game coming up next Monday. So then the college football season is going to be ending. So football as a whole is going to be ending pretty soon, which means the focus is going to be turning over here to college basketball. And I want to get you guys prepared, knowing about these teams, knowing which teams can make a run here early in the season. So that way when the bracket finally gets released for the actual selection Sunday, you guys are prepared to make those runs throughout your own bracket polls and stuff and maybe learn some stuff about teams that you didn't know about already. But anyway, enough talking. We're 6.5 minutes into the video. Let's go ahead and get into my picks. So up first, we're obviously going to have Gonzaga here moving on past the winner of NCAA and Grambling. Then we're going to have Duke moving on against Seton Hall. Duke is down to an 8 seed, but I think they'll be recovered to like a 4 or 5 by the end of the season. Then we're going to have Oregon beat Furman there. Nothing too special. Same with West Virginia handling business against Toledo. Then I'm going to go with an upset here. I'm going to go with Northwestern beating USC and then beating Virginia. I think Northwestern could get a win here. I don't remember if they won their first game tournament game in forever against Vanderbilt a couple years ago. I know that was like a huge storyline for that game. Don't remember the outcome of it, but either way, I think they'll be able to get the victory there over Virginia, who I just have not really been impressed by this season. And we're going to have Tennessee beat UC Irvine. If I can pick Tennessee, there we go. Then we're going to have San Diego State beat North Carolina. Just not sold on North Carolina, as I've been mentioning throughout the course of this video. Then Michigan will beat Southern Utah. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we will have Gonzaga here moving on past Duke. I'm going to go with West Virginia here moving on past Oregon. Battle of the 2 yellow teams there. Oregon sometimes is green and West Virginia sometimes navy, but I think if both teams played yellow, that'd be pretty cool. I know you guys in previous videos, I have not been sold on West Virginia, but I watched that game last night against Oklahoma, and man, that second half run to come back and win the game, they were really impressive there. I took note of that. But then we're going to have Tennessee here moving on past Northwestern, and then San Diego State will fall to Michigan, who is just looking fantastic right now. Then for a spot, as you can see here in the Elite Eight, we are going to go with Gonzaga moving on past West Virginia. Then I'm going to go with Michigan here moving on past Tennessee. Just haven't really seen anything otherwise for Michigan that would make me think they would lose here before they run into the buzzsaw that is Gonzaga, which I am going to have Gonzaga end up moving on out of this region. They just look super impressive right now. As I mentioned last time I did the bracketology, 4 out of their first 7 games were against top 25 teams, and they won against all of them, which was a first in college basketball history somehow. But then if we go over here to Region 2, we are going to have Baylor here moving on past St. Mary's and Jacksonville State. Then I'm going to go with Florida State moving on past Indiana. Then we're going to go with Minnesota moving on past Wichita State. Missouri, I think, could handle business against Belmont. Actually, you know what? I'm going to switch that. Switch that to Belmont as a 13 seed, upsetting a 4 seed. As I thought about it for a second, Missouri almost lost to Bradley a couple of games ago, but they beat them by 1 point on their home court, needed an and 1 to get it done. And I know they did just beat Arkansas, but I might as well go with an upset there because there's always going to be upsets in the tournament. Why not go with Belmont there beating Missouri as a 13/4, make it fun. We're going to have Florida here moving on past Boise State, and Creighton will hold off against Navy. Virginia Tech, I think, can end up beating Xavier here, and then Illinois will hold off Oral Roberts. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we are going to go with Baylor here moving on past Florida State. That one would be a fun game to see in my opinion. And we're going to go with Minnesota here moving on past Belmont. Florida, I think, will falter here against Creighton. And then Illinois, you guys know how much I love Illinois this season. They will move on past Virginia Tech with Ion DeSumo. And we're going to go with Baylor here moving on past Minnesota. And then we're also going to have Illinois moving on past Creighton if I can pick. There we go. Illinois moving here past Creighton, which sets up another 1v. cut there, but we have here the Elite Eight matchup of Baylor and Illinois in this region. 1 versus 2 seed, just like the other one. I promise there will be upsets here coming in the next couple of regions, but it's just the way that this region ended up working out. We got Baylor and Illinois. These two teams could play for a championship, in my opinion, but here they are playing in the Elite Eight to represent Region 2 in the Final Four, and I am going to go with Baylor. They did struggle a little bit against Iowa State, I did notice, over the course of the weekend, but they were able to sort it out at halftime and ended up winning by double digits, so it worked out pretty well for them. So down here, if we do go to Region 3, we will have Villanova moving on past Stony Brook. We're going to have Michigan State holding off LSU. I think Michigan State's going to have a better seed by the time the tournament rolls around. Then we're going to have Texas Tech holding off Clemson holding off Abilene Christian. Then we are going to have Ohio State here moving on past Drake. Drake may be a little bit too of a high seed with an 11. I think Ohio State will be able to handle them pretty well. We're going to go with Kansas beating Little Rock. Syracuse, I think, as a 10 seed could hold off the 7 seed UCLA there. And Wisconsin will beat New Mexico State. And then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we are going to have Villanova here moving on past Michigan State. Texas Tech can get the slight 5-4 upset there over Clemson. Then we are going to go with Kansas moving on past Ohio State and Wisconsin moving on past Syracuse. But then for a spot in the final, or not in the Final Four, in the Elite Eight, I'm going to go with an upset pick here. I'm going to go with a 4 seed Texas Tech Red Raiders moving on past Villanova. I know Texas Tech did just lose against Oklahoma State, but Villanova lost against Virginia Tech earlier in the season. So, I mean, both of these teams can beat anybody and really lose to anybody. I think Texas Tech could get it done there with Chris Beard moving on to the Elite Eight. And they will face the winner of Kansas and Wisconsin, which I think will be Kansas. I know Kansas just got destroyed by Texas, but Wisconsin just also lost. I can't remember. I think it was to Minnesota. I'm not entirely sure on that. Don't quote me on it. But Wisconsin did just lose a game pretty recently. Don't remember who it was to. But either way, I think Kansas will be able to get the victory there over Wisconsin. I trust Bill Self here in the tournament. And then they got people like Jalen Wilson and Chris Brown able to move them on to the Elite Eight. But then they will falter here to Texas Tech as a 5 seed. Moving on to the Final Four, going to have another Big 12 matchup there, go from facing Kansas in the Elite Eight to facing Baylor in the Final Four. Just the way this bracket ended up working out, I think Texas Tech can get it done. They went to the national championship before, and I think that they could get to the Final Four at least here. So then over here in Region 4, we are going to have Texas here moving on past Rice. Arkansas will move on past NC State. Louisville will be able to hold off VCU. Rutgers will be able to beat Hofstra. I'm going to go with an upset pick here. I think if Alabama beats Oklahoma State, I think St. Louis could win. But I think that Oklahoma State is going to beat Alabama, and then Oklahoma State will upset St. Louis there. Then Houston will be able to beat Siena. We got Colorado faltering there against UConn, another 10-7 upset. And then Iowa will hold off Cleveland State here. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we're going to have Texas moving on past Arkansas. Rutgers, I think, can hold off Louisville there and move on to the Sweet 16. Then I'm going to go with Oklahoma State again here, moving on past Houston, an 11 seed in the Elite Eight, or not in the Elite Eight, in the Sweet 16. If Alabama wins that first round game, this bracket is screwed, but I think Oklahoma State can make a run with the most talented player in the nation, in Cade Cunningham. Then we're going to go with Iowa here, moving on past UConn. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we are going to go with an upset here of Rutgers moving on past Texas. I'm another big believer in Rutgers this year. I think that they could get the job done there. I think only 2 1 seeds are going to end up making the Final Four this year, and I think they're going to be Gonzaga and Baylor. I think some craziness is going to happen throughout the rest of the bracket, so I'm going to go with Rutgers there, pulling off the 4-1 upset. But then I am going to go with Luka Garza and Iowa there, ending Oklahoma State's run throughout the course of the tournament as a double-digit seed, which sets up Rutgers versus Iowa in the Elite Eight. And I think that Iowa will be able to get the job done there and move on to the Final Four. So here in the Final Four, Gonzaga, I think, will be able to handle Iowa. Gonzaga just so complete. It's such a complete team. I mean, I don't really know what to say there. And then Iowa, they struggle so much defensively. Offensively, they are so good, but defensively, I mean, they're going to score 90 on you. But it's just a matter of if the opposite team scores like 100 or something like that. They just need to iron out that defense by the time Big Ten, I guess by the time the tournament rolls around really, but throughout the course of the Big Ten season. And then we're going to have Baylor here moving on past Texas Tech. I think Baylor will be able to get the job done there. And if you're watching the video at this point, I think we're like 13 minutes in, something like that. It's been a longer video than I have been doing recently, but we're getting a little bit closer, and I've been watching more college basketball so I can talk about stuff. But if you are watching this video at this moment in time, comment down below, corn on the cob. Why not let it fly? Switch it up from a one-word food item to still a food item, but we'll see if people can understand where this comment is coming from. Right here at this moment, comment corn on the cob if you're watching. So then either way, here in the national championship game, we got Gonzaga versus Baylor. This will probably be the championship game for most of my bracketologies here in the near future. But either way, I am going to have Gonzaga winning it. I've been flip-flopping between these two teams in my head over these past couple of weeks. I think the last bracketology that I did, I went with Baylor winning it. But here I am going to go with Gonzaga winning the national championship. They're just such a complete team right now, looking so good. And I think they will end up winning the national championship. So thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for following me here into the new year. Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully 2021 is a lot better than 2020 was. Hopefully we actually get a tournament this year. We'll kind of see what happens with that. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you all later.